number one on my list in terms of artists was this gentleman named Rob De La Torre. You guys have seen mind-bending, mind-blowing artwork and what he's capable of. And so once we got his commitment on board, I felt like we were unstoppable. And that's sort of the mindset we've had, is we're, putting it all there on the page for you guys, and we're just gonna blow it up in ways I can't even properly describe to you, although I'm going to have to, because I want to panel all about this now.
It's not like you write for it.
It's not like I write words, that thing.
I mean, thank you very much, Jim. We're supremely proud to be working with Fred and the Heroic Signatures team at Titan. In fact, I think our president and CEO is here in the room somewhere, is he not? Nick, are you here, mate? Can you just stand up for a second? Lifelong Conan fan, and it's Nick and Fred working together is why we're bringing this to you right now. Can we have a bit of a conversation about the creation of issue 1 and what you talked about the magnificent Seven, like recruiting of the team, but they're on the horses now. They're riding towards the village. What's going on?
In terms of our plan, everyone knows that Robert E. Howard's most famous creation is Conan the Barbarian. There are 21 canon stories that we're building around. But Robert E. Howard also wrote over 300 short stories for the pulps, and there's a reason why he and Lovecraft are the legends, that they became. That their names are synonymous with that era of fiction. And a lot of those stories are peppered with mythology and symbols and terms and creatures and gods and concepts, even if they're different genres, even if they're not sword and sorcery stories. Like when he was doing westerns, when he was doing boxing stories and horror stories and things like that. And previously, when Roy Thomas was writing the book, he would occasionally take an old story like The Black Stone, and he would file the serial numbers off and make it a Conan story. Red Sonja of Rogatino was in a different time era, and he filed the serial numbers off and made that a Conan era character and things like that. And so one of our ideas is taking those original stories in their eras, where they're set, and that they are part of this grand history and mythology, and it's all part of one. It's the original multiverse or connected sort of universe. And as you start reading our first story arc, you're going to start to see a bigger plan. Each story we're going to do, usually 4 issues at a time, is a self-contained, amazing, entertaining fantasy story. If you've never read Conan, jump in, you're going to have a great time. But the more you read, and the more you know, and up to the point where we literally have a Robert E. Howard scholar on hand who helps us with this stuff. His name's Jeffrey Shanks, and he's incredible. PhD, we always joke about that. He's writing essays in the back of every issue. You're going to start to see a big plan, a big, cool, incredible adventure that we're going to sweep out over the next couple years. And having the chance to start early and build big is a real unique pleasure. And so, as much as this opening salvo I think is great, and the first story arc is great, I think you guys are going to be even more excited 10 issues, 12 issues to come, and we're going to have so much cool stuff to talk about. Our first story arc is literally called Bound in Black Stone, and that's right there sort of sets the pace for where we're going in the bigger picture.
Yeah, nice one. We've got an image up at the moment of the kind of evolution of the page.
Yeah.
Just comment upon that, guys.
We have always worked with Marvel Method. Ooh,
that's right.
Listen, scratching. We have the Boys Working Marvel Method. Which do you guys think that is?
Yeah, I can explain. So normally in the modern era, most writers, and myself included, do full script. And I've probably written over 8,000 pages of comics as full script, where you write panel 1, this is happening, panel 2, this is happening, here are the sound effects, here's the dialogue, here's the captioning, or things like that, and then the artist draws it, and that's sort of the expected way it works. When Stan, or Roy Thomas, and a lot of the writers of the 60s and 70s were working, because they were doing so many books, and the artists that they were working with were used to just sort of setting the visual pacing, they would just say, on this set of pages, these things happen. The artist would do as many or as few panels as they needed, and then Stan or Roy or whoever was writing would come in and dialogue it after the fact. And almost no one works that way. I think Dan Slott's one of the only ones who's still doing it at Marvel. When I talked to Rob Del Torre, you know, he is a singular artist and he has an incredible storytelling sensibility. It would be almost presumptuous for me to tell him how many panels something's going to take. And so I said, why don't I let you be you, fill, you know, in the visual as you will, and then I'll come and dialogue it in. And he goes, can you do that? And I go, I don't know. I've never done it before, but I want to try, and I want you to be as excited as possible. And so issue 0, the free comic issue that you guys, many of you were given when you came in the door, was literally our first, that's our proof of concept. It's also our mission statement in terms of how we want to do the book. And it is such a unique process because I am not dialoguing to what I hope something will look like. I am dialoguing and writing soaring captions in the, you know, prose style to his exact art. And then his art is phenomenal, so then I feel an incredible pressure to match it in terms of my writing. And then he gets excited and does another crazy sequence. And then we're just trying to outdo each other at every stage. And that, I think, is what's driving us in a really cool and unique way. And so even though I've written a lot of comics, this has been like reinvigorating for me. And I don't know if I can do this with any other artist, but as a process, it's been so cool. And you see the results.
The funny thing is, there's a rare piece there that is mind-blowing to me because there's actually a sketch.
Yeah.
The sketch like of Rob, a page breakdown.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He doesn't do that normally.
Yeah. For the first issue, we insisted he do page breakdowns because we were so afraid it wasn't going to work.
And then the thing is, like, he did it for like the first like maybe 2 or 3 pages, and then all of a sudden we just started getting
Finished art.
Finished art.
The best compliment I got is I sent him the, I would say script normally, the outline for issue 2. And the only response back he got is, I can see it, and you will soon.
Jim and I talk every week, like, you know, going over the story and stuff like that. And probably about a good half hour and 40 minutes are just me and Jim going, did you see that? Did you see that? And then he takes the axe and cuts his face laterally. That's an hour of just,
We just giggling.
2 40-year-old men giggling like
Giggling
children.
on Zoom, and we're just like,
yeah, it was,
holy crap.
It's insane. It really is.
Every time we get new stuff in.
Is it true that you guys like Zoom in the middle of the night?
Not in the middle of the night, yeah. No, but honestly, it's a joy. It's a joy when you're working with people who are all very passionate about the stuff that we're doing. You know, Richard's an absolute legend. I was walking down the aisle, and I was coming over to my booth to reintroduce myself because I didn't think you remember what I looked like. And he was talking to someone, and I was like, oh, I'm going to catch up with him later. And he dashed out of his booth so he could tell me how much he's enjoying lettering the book because he got to read it before everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is my life this week. It's been very, very nice.
And I just want to say, you know, when I found out that Conan was being relaunched with Rob,
Yeah.
I hunted down Matt. I got in touch with Jake at Titan. I was like, who is editing Conan? Because 3 years ago, during the pandemic, I spent all my holiday money on commissions, and I got 2 Conan commissions from Rob in 2020.
Yeah.
And they were cover recreations. You know, I can't afford John Buscema artwork. So he recreated the covers of issue 88, and I think it's 42 or 43, it's Conan and Red Sonja on the skull.
Yeah.
So they hang on my wall in the studio, and I got in touch finally with Matt, and because I love Conan. Conan was my entry-level drug for comics. When I was a teenager, I was reading Barry Smith and John Buscema, and I have recently reread all 10 omnibuses of Conan the Barbarian.
You and me both.
Because it's such an influence on me as a writer as well. And I do a book called Ask for Mercy, which is, it's monsters, but it's sword and sorcery.
Yeah.
And it's so important to me. And I read all the old, we call them the Sphere trade paperbacks in England, but they're the Lancer ones out here. I read and reread those as a kid. And I don't know what it is about Conan, but I love what you said. He's the Superman of sword and sorcery.
He is,
But-
and he seems to bring out the best in artists and writers. That we all feel a deep responsibility to upholding.
But I was going to say, of course, this is not the first stint with Conan because we met, I guess, 20 years ago, and you did that legendary, 15-year run for Dark Horse.
We worked on Conan
Yeah.
for 15 years, and I was very upset with Marvel.
Yeah.
Took it away from him.
Yeah, but it's interesting you say that you had bought a couple of the Conan commissions from Rob because I had seen Rob's work on. He did a cover for Marvel,
Yeah.
and I hadn't seen his work before, right?
That was the
So
first time I saw it.
yeah, it sounds to me like he was getting more and more known throughout the
The fan
fans.
circles,
Yeah,
yes.
because he did these
Yeah.
awesome commission
I
Conans.
first started getting tagged on Facebook, and people were literally like, "Why aren't you drawing Conan?" Because he was doing these commission drawings, and I was like, "Who is this guy? What is going on?" And I think one of the first Facebook messages we share back and forth, he literally goes, "Sorry, they keep bugging you," and he's like, "They're very passionate." I'm like, "I know, I'm one of them." And then I'm digging deeper and deeper. I'm like, "Oh my God, this guy is brilliant." It's like Hal Foster by way of Frazetta by way of Big John. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I just said, "Oh, you're working on digital." And he goes, "No, it's traditional." And I was like, "This is impossible. You are like, how have I never heard of you before? What's going on?" And we were talking back and forth and trying to make things sort of happen. Marvel ended up using him just for that king-size Conan one-shot. And I was like, he does sequentials. He's the complete package. We got to do this thing. And we just couldn't, it just didn't all hook up.
But when you mentioned that you wanted to work in the Marvel style or Marvel
Yeah.
method, and you and Matt started developing how to do that, I guess that was perfect for Rob.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, and I understand that is artist specific. So for
Right.
some artists it wouldn't
Right.
work. But I'm thinking what would have happened if Carrie Nord had the
Oh, right,
Marvel
yeah,
method
Dark Horse.
back in the day,
That
or
would
Dark
be
Horse,
fascinating, right?
because he's also somebody who sort of their art comes out of.
Well, I always say, like, I try to write to the artist that I'm working for. The worst case scenario is to be determined.
Yeah.
Like, who is drawing this? We don't know, just write it. You're like, well, I don't know what they're good at. I don't know what they're excited about. I can't imagine it. Like, I can do that, of course, and I've done it many times, but the best case scenario is they're there from the start. This is a collaboration. Comics are this wonderful, unique, collaborative medium. And so I want to get on the phone with somebody, now Zoom or whatever, and say, "Hey man, what are you excited about? What's the coolest
But the
thing?"
audience should also know. You probably know because you're diehard comic book fans. But it's extremely punishing to be on a monthly comic book
It's so
schedule
hard.
as an artist. It's
Yeah.
so tough, and it fucks up your mind because after some time you think you can't meet those deadlines. You won't meet those deadlines,
Right.
and then you get I guess you have writer's block, but they have some art block, and so kudos for that. And I think Matt, we might speak to that later too, of how an editor must plan for the inevitable fallout of like, oh my God, I have an issue deadline.
Monthly is like, once that train leaves the station, it's not going to stop. Like, here's a ship deadline, and you're not just, you're planning. In most cases, you're planning 6-7 months ahead. You've got 2 years worth of plans. You're roughing out one issue, another issue's finishing line art, another issue's in colors, another issue's in lettering, another issue's in proofing. Hey, let's check the letters page. And move, and move, and move. And it's like, what are you doing today? I'm doing 5 different things.
Yeah.
What are you doing tomorrow? I'm doing 5 different things. And it's a joy because you're in a constant cycle of material coming through, but you're living with it, you're marinating in it. It's relentless, and you love it. But at times, you're sitting there.
The joyous terror.
You do. You're like, and here we go again, and here we go again. It's like the roller coaster ride but it doesn't stop at the station. It just goes by, and you're on another loop. And you're like, this is fun. This is, oh my God. Like, here we go. Oh, and then promotion, right? So you're like, oh, it's con season. Here we go. But back in my hotel, we've also got those 5 things, So it's like, cool. Don't like nail my wrist to my forehead. Oh, boo-hoo, I have.
I remember about a year ago, and we had already contracted Jim, or we knew he was going to do it, and it's like, where's the issue?
Yeah.
Where's the issue? And he kept emailing like, oh, it's con season, it's con season, it's coming. So, and Matt was saying, oh, I think he's got 5 issues in his head. They're all going to come in. First week of September.
Yeah.
They're all going to come
They
in.
all just started exploding outwards. Once you finish con season, you're like, okay, head down, we gotta go. You know, people joke around, they're like, why are there so many Canadian comic book creators? And I said, well, there's 2 reasons. First of all, we have healthcare. And second of all, so we can take risks and be creative idiots. And second of all, in the winter months, what else am I gonna do, right? So we just kind of get up on it. And they're like, it's not like that. It's not like the frozen Arctic. And then every time there's a crazy snowfall in Toronto, they're all like, sure, whatever. But anyways, yeah, it does just sort of pour out of me. The fall tends to be like crazy. I'm a writing machine in the fall in particular. And like, this is the buildup of energy, and then we're just sort of like exploding forth. We've got, you know, beyond just Rob Zoltori, we're working with another artist. I don't think we're announcing it. Are we announcing the second artist on Conan? Yeah?
Yeah,
Doug,
because of you guys.
Doug Braithwaite is
An
coming.
amazing Doug Braithwaite, who's a legend in his own time and one of my favorite artists. We reached out to him because, you know, even Rob is an incredible talent, he's very, very skilled, but we don't want to burn him out immediately, so he's doing the first story arc and then he's doing the third story arc. Doug Braithwaite's stepping in to do the second story arc. I am such a huge fan of his, and we got on a Zoom call with him, and he's nervous because he loves Conan, and he was all like, I think I'd be a good fit. I'm like, does he think he's interviewing for the job? I'm trying to convince him to get on board, and he thinks he's trying to impress us or something. This is nuts, you know? And I sent him the outline. I'm like, do you like it? And he goes, well, I'll do some sketches, and you tell me what you think. And I'm just like,
And we got back full pages.
yeah, I'm not kidding.
Of just a rough
The,
sketch.
the first email we got from Doug was 16 pages
Yes.
of art. And I was just like,
We were expecting breakdowns, but
yeah.
okay.
I mean,
Character designs?
yeah.
Boom.
I'm like,
Full pages.
well, that works.
Yeah.
So we went from like, I think we're falling behind schedule to, oh my God, like it's just been phenomenal, the ride that we're on right now. So I've got artwork coming in from Rob, I've got artwork coming in from Doug, we've got,
And you're working full script with Doug.
I'm working full script with Doug, so it's a very different process. He wanted full script, I write to the artist, let's do it like this. And so we're talking about this different sort of thing. So it's like I'm writing the same story, but I've got to sort of switch gears mentally and go, oh no, all the
The
narratives.
mental gymnastics that you've proven yourself capable of in the
Oh,
past
thanks,
couple of weeks
man.
is fascinating.
It's super fun.
And when you break down, I will scream at you.
No, we got this. We got this.
Hey
Yeah.
guys, on that note, can I ask, a big part of your process is,
Yeah.
can you talk through the roadmap?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that is so nice, I don't know if you guys have noticed, it feels like more and more series are being announced that are mini-series, 4 issues, 6 issues, or they say it's an ongoing and then they cut you off at the knees at 5 issues or something like that. And it's an incredibly difficult way to work because you simultaneously are trying to build something big but have one foot out the door. It's impossibly hard because at any moment the door, you know, everything shuts down and you're like, well, we ended it. And people go, that feels very unsatisfying. You're like, it does, doesn't it? It's very odd. And so instead, we have, thanks to Fred and Titan and everyone else, they know we're sticking around for a while. I remember you said, how much Conan do you want to write? And I said, if we ever stopped, and they had to collect it in one book, I want it to be so thick that if you drop it off a third story landing, you would kill a child. That's how much Conan I want to write. And then volume 2, we just push it over the top. But so we have the big plan, the sort of like, you know, mythic structure that is in sort of these 1 year chunks, for lack of a better term, in terms of what we're trying to do thematically, the big payoffs that we want to have. And then within it, there's usually going to be 3 stories, 4 issues apiece. And each of those are a satisfying beginning, middle, and end adventure that's like exciting and awesome, that pays off. And you're like, wow, that was cool. And then let's go again. And if you're paying attention, you see that the last one, either thematically or specific items or characters or villains or gods are going to show up again. And you're going to go, wait, I think this is all connected. And then it's going to get bigger and crazier and wilder.
And on that note, we're trying to, because we're in the middle of the whole IP development, we're trying to sort of use the comic books like Marvel, as the driving factor for all the different plans we do. So the video games, if we can, and they have all different production phases and development phases. So it's very tricky, but to not make it necessary, but to reward people who read the comics.
Right.
That they get like a little Easter egg in the game and like, oh, I recognize that.
And that's what's so
business.
You guys look in the back and you see the ads for the video games.
Right.
And you see those things because it's I'm working with Heroic Signatures directly. We talk every week. The way Fred explained to me, he goes, a video game comes out maybe once every 5 or 6 years, or there's patches and things. A novel might come out once a year. A movie is, once in a generation or whatever. The comic is the sharp tip of the spear. Every month you're going to get your hit. So that's kind of our mouthpiece. It's our ability to announce cool things or preview cool things. Monolith has got that amazing Conan board game, and if you guys have not played it, I'm a gargantuan role-playing game and board game fan, and I played that game, and I was angry because I'm like, everyone's going to think I'm biased because it's Conan. That's a great damn board game, really, really good. But if there's more expansions for that, we can announce it and show it off in the comic. If there's a new video game to be announced, we can announce it and show it off in the comic. Statues, toys, cool things. Like this is sort of the Robert E. Howard, kind of announcing platform for us.
Guys, on that special announcement note, I think that's the perfect jumping off point for the video announcement we've got.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned. I won't tell you what this is, but I can tell you it's pretty savage and it's pretty razor sharp. So here we go.
So, the one thing we've been getting most requests for is, what I grew up on was black and white, oversized, black and white. You guys, Savage Sword changed my life. Holy crap, you know what was awesome? Savage Sword of Conan. And we were like, yeah, that's a really good idea. So, 2024, we're bringing back Savage Sword of Conan in big, beautiful,
Black and white, magazine size. By the way, that logo was done by Dan Panosian. Come on up, Dan.
Yeah, come on.
We're getting on basically the Conan All-Stars. So we got videos from Peanuts and our logo. Frank Thierry is writing a story for us. Jim Zub writing a story for us. Zach, come on up. He's writing for Kevin Gordon.
Yeah, I'm doing Savage Sword and I'm bringing Kevin Gordon back with me.
Gerardo Zafino is coming back to comics for Savage Sword. He's working with John Marcuti. We have a great European guy named Max von Fafner. He's been doing stuff that's really knocking it out of the park. So we've been kind of trying to keep that low. I know it's been the worst kept secret in comics.
Because we were reaching out to everyone that does amazing black and white stuff. We're like, hey, we should talk. Hey, we should talk. Hey, check this stuff out.
Did you mention Zafino?
Yeah, Zafino's going to be coming back. I'm doing a story with Richard Pace, who I'm a huge fan of, and he also lives in Toronto, so we've been getting together and actively working on it, at my dining room table, and planning out big, crazy stuff, and my wife comes home and she just sees us, and we're sitting there freaking out, and we got paper everywhere, and we're all excitedly talking about it. It is an absolute dream come true, and these guys are making it that much better.
I just want to add, it's a shout out to two of the guys at Titan Comics, is John and Ricky. They're here, I think. John and Ricky, who is working with us on the planning of the production and the costing and the distribution and what a retailer's going to think. And we're all going there it's going to be oversized like that.
So
and they're but the retailers have shelves that they need. And he says, we don't care, it's going to be oversized. and then it's supposed to be black and white. And they start okay, we'll cost this out. And how many pages? It's going to be 66 pages, 64 pages. And they're okay. And actually, Matt was the conservative voice in the room saying, it can't be $10. We have to get this down to like $5.99, $6.99, and of course,
I'm not going to exploit you guys in that. I will find other ways to exploit you.
Now, the other ways he found to torture us was he said, you know, we decided first issue should probably be like 100 pages. But it's a really great project. It's really.
Every artist I speak to wants to work on it.
Yeah.
And you're like, no. So like, I'm going to have like 3,000 pinups that I have no idea what to do.
Richard Pace was all like sourcing out paper, and he was like, "Oh, I gotta work bigger. And I'm just like, "Okay, man, whatever you want." And he goes, "Oh, but we gotta think about the print size and then the bleed and all this sort of stuff."
And I had like 2 weeks of emails from him, like just saying, like, didn't stop here, don't care.
Yeah.
Shut the draw.
He's at an art store, and he's sending me photos of different tooths of paper. I'm like, I can't tell the difference in a photo. What are you doing in that? It's amazing. It's amazing.
So guys, we're going to use this fine lineup of people to pivot into the Q&As. But before I do that, the one other piece of information I want to share with you, I've listened to all this conversation with like my heart in my mouth, because of course I'm an old school Savage Sword of Conan fan myself. And we've had just a wonderful ride at Titan, opening up the pages on this book, myself and Nick and John and Ricky who run Titan Comics, and Willow Mullane, our mighty PR manager at the back there. And when we got issue 1 and we went through it in detail, we were like, this is fucking incredible. It's just so good, the work that you guys are doing. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating and the slaughtering and all that, because issue 1, we currently have confirmed sales of well over 80,000 copies. We think we're going to finish at north of 100,000. And that is the best-selling Time comic book of all time.
Thank you. Like in Marvel and DC terms right now, or anything in terms of comics, that is, a soaring number of sales, and well beyond anything that we could have imagined in terms of that. And that is a testament to the fans and to the retailers who believed in it, people who picked it up at Free Comic Book Day. And when we said, please tell your retailer you want to get on the profile, tell your friends we're back in a big way. Tell everybody, it's a new age of Highborn Adventure. It starts right now, and you guys did it. And I am so, I'm so humbled, seriously, by this. We got the news yesterday. They rushed over the table and they told me, well, we're gonna have to do a second printing. I'm like, the book's not out yet. And they're just like, we blew through the overprint. Everything's crazy.
What's the number?
He just said, north of 80,000 for the first
Get
print.
to 100,000.
I would like to get to 100,000. Amazing. Let's mark Matt with a tattoo.
There's the incentive.
Oh, there you go.
Torture the editor. Make me bleed. Buy 100,000.
Amazing. So thank you guys. Thank you seriously for everything that you guys do. It means-
Another round of applause for these guys today. On that note, it is question and answer time. So if you could please just get up and line up here and mention the time on it, or to the side perhaps, so we're not in the way of the cameras. Anybody who wants to come and ask a question, please come and
Is there
ask a
a
question.
mic?
Yeah, usually there's a mic stand in the centre of the room.
We can just, I
Yeah,
can
shout
repeat
out.
it. Yeah, it's fine.
Sir.
Can you talk about any other Robert E. Howard characters that you might do? And
Oh,
especially
boy.
with Savage Sword?
Oh boy. I can tell you, what I can do is I can tell you some characters I think are really cool. And characters I've been doing a lot of research on.
For no particular
For no
reason.
particular reason. Is that okay? Okay. There's this guy, the proto Conan, Call the Conqueror. I think is so friggin' cool. I am such a huge fan of Solomon Kane, and I think he's incredible.
So, Savage Sword of Conan, of course, there's going to be a main story about 48 pages.
Yep.
And there's going to be a backup story. And I believe what maybe the first 4 issues.
Yep.
Patch Berserker relaunching Solomon Kane.
Yeah, so we are, Solomon Kane is a lock, and so I can tell you that for sure. And then there's a bunch of other really cool characters all in that broader canon. I've been reading, we've been researching. Jeff Shanks, our scholar of all things Robert E. PhD, and I are chatting up a storm in terms of interconnectivity of these characters.
I have a question.
Sure.
What about Bailey?
Believe? So, I can tell you that Doug Braithwaite draws a really beautiful Bailey. So, I've seen some things. So, yeah, how's that for a start? I think we're going to be in pretty good
Any
shape.
more, please, folks? Hands in the air. You, sir, with the green hat.
How much, if any, connection will have to previous series, like characters that maybe have died in other series will
Sure.
be back in this one?
So here's our mandate. Like I sort of said earlier, the original Robert E. Howard stories are the absolute canon. You know, whether it's Roy Thomas or Kurt Busiek or you know, Tim Truman, any of these people, they've written all sorts of amazing connected sort of tissue, and some of that stuff may be in play, but we also don't want to feel absolutely tamped down by it. So for example, the vision that we had of the Battle of Venarium in Free Comic Book Day is different than when Tim Truman did it, but it's also fused to the original canon very strongly. So I'm not going out of my way to like bulldoze any other people's stuff out of the way, but I also don't want to be trapped by it, you know. Robert's words sort of come first, and then everything else is sort of to be determined as we go. And some of that stuff I am going to bring back into it in different ways. But I can't guarantee all your old favorites or some characters that were created in that extended way are going to be in the mix, although we may do a tip of the hat at some different points.
Yes. Yeah, Viking man.
So I may not have the credit because I haven't read the Robert E. Howard
Sure.
paperbacks. I know Conan from Roy Thomas.
Yep.
Harry Windsor Smith. John
Of course.
Vision of Conan.
Yeah.
And I don't know about anybody else, but I was extremely disappointed by the Arnold Schwarzenegger films, and the latest film.
Right.
Is there any? You guys seem to be on the same page.
You'll notice that
I
we're.
wonder if there's a film in the office that could do justice to the character.
So I can answer that because filmmaking is hard, right? It's everybody knows that. But at the end of the day, whoever pays for the film will make decisions, and they're not necessarily what we would like to do as IP owners or controllers. Today we have more resources, better control. We are working with a filmmaker, A-list filmmaker. We're developing a movie to start off the franchise with plans for series as well as animated material. And this filmmaker is deeply a deep Conan fan.
We set up a call with him, and I thought because of their prestige, it was going to be a very Hollywood call. I thought it was going to be a 5 minutes, oh, very nice to meet you. And we talked for over 2.5 hours. Deep, abiding love of the character at its source.
Now that's what I call the creative hive mind, right? You put the best video game designer with Jim and the filmmaker, and you make sure they all align and have the same. But it doesn't really stop there. You have to be really careful. So we don't have to make a movie unless it's the right movie.
Right.
Which means we'd rather have no movie than the wrong movie. Having said that, right now we're going through the whole period of strikes and stuff. It's very difficult, but we have identified 3 or 4 partners that we would actually partner with, not license to. We would be equal partners and make sure that this gets made the way that it should get made. And then, of course, you have to realize that means, well, what's the budget? All of those things, the green light mechanisms. Of course, you want to have a really great Hollywood partner. You don't want to go out there and do some little weird indie film that is just doesn't get the resources and the marketing. We want to make sure that it gets the right treatment. But we're on it. We're on it.
More questions? More questions. Sir.
So as we know, Conan has he has a very vast career.
Yes.
Very vast career, doing many things. So
You had a great career advisor early on, and you can't underestimate the power of
His
his
resume is stacked.
So especially since issue 1 will be coming out, how did you decide to place your story within that very career?
Sure.
That particular time in his.
Right, and it's also just a little bit of a note. It's interesting too. There's these sort of, if you wanted to simplify it, 3 big eras of the character, right? You've got Conan, early in his career, kind of sowing his oats and running wild wanderlust. You've got him becoming eventually a leader of men, and then eventually a king by his own hand. And in some ways, it's very simple. Wherever he goes, adventure and excitement will happen. But on the other hand, if you've been paying attention or you're reading deeper, you can place these stories in an exact order in the geography and within the mythic sort of structure of it. And so I'm trying to play it that the original stories were not released in order. The first published story is, Phoenix on the Sword. He's already a king, and then they jumped around in the pulp. Some of the stories, Robert wrote were never released until after he was gone, and so they're out of order. I don't want to jump around violently in that way, but I also want to have the flexibility to move past, show you something symbolically interesting, and then the next story we roll things to a different era. He's a buccaneer, he's a mercenary, he's a leader, or eventually a king, and stuff like that. So we have a lot of flexibility within that structure. I'm not going to do, this is the first Conan story, and then right after that, butted up against it, is the second and the third, and fill in right up to Tower of the Elephant or something like that. I don't want to take all the air out of it for any other writer that wants to be able to tell their cool stories. These characters are bigger than me. They're
kind of you,
all
Jim.
of us. There will never be a perfect absolute, these are the 20 stories between these 2 pillars. This character is eternal, and they will carry on.
It's like a legend.
Yeah.
These are the stories that are told drunkenly around the campfire. Right? Everything's going to come out at different times and different points. Everybody's going to put their own spin on it. And the closest to the truth is Robert E. Howard.
Right.
That's their retreat. Everything else is.
And he's hard to get to.
He's
But Matt, I think that's so good. That's the great thing with Savage Sword is that it allows for a little more of experimentation, a little more of freedom, because the monthly is the workhorse. That's the one that has to be there and have those big 2-3 year arcs, and still be able to the reader should be able to pick it up and just look like, wow, this is a cool story.
It's cool because I get to play with these guys for a little bit because Jim is going to keep
You
going.
can only handle so much.
No stopping, Jim.
No, we'll have to murder him.
And we might.
For example, I'm telling you the Conan werewolf story. So it's Conan and Wolves of the Tundra. So Conan versus a clan of werewolves in the snow.
Yeah.
You have to kill a bunny in the first 2 pages.
And so with an incredible,
It was
an incredible artist.
When a girl will carry door
Everybody draw snow.
He can draw anything.
and dead bunnies.
Hey guys, we are slaughtering and buccaneering our way towards the end of this panel at speed. And given that that's the case, we've got a few pieces of business we need to talk about. We might get to one question, but first of all, we've got Ashley, come up the next slide. Oh, we have the mighty prize bundle, and we will make the prize bundle manifest by shouting the name Crom 3 times in ascending order. You ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3.
Do you know what's crazy is Crom doesn't care, but this is great.
He disdains praise.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to murder this name. Michael Sott. S-Z-O-T.
S-E-O-T.
That sounds fake.
No?
All right, I get his prize.
Oh.
What is this? I get this? Thank you.
Dun, 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 dun. Get the specs out of it.
Oh, that's a big name too. Edward A. De La Torre.
No.
Another fake name.
Are you
Jim
gonna-
Zub is rigging this.
You're going to be drawing names? We're going to be on names.
You guys just feel like death battles for me?
Nice. The blood.
I'll get a sword.
Just a couple of axes and throw them in the ring. See what happens.
Felix again?
Felix.
Where is it?
What's that? Oh, is the box? Is he gonna pick that here?
It's like it's in a box, right?
It's that giant box.
Yes.
I hope you have room in your luggage. Make sure we get a photo after.
Everybody, come and see us at booth 5537, where we'll not just have all these comic book goodies for you, but we've also got the Conan the Barbarian making of the film book, exclusive edition here at the booth, which has a great Elvis pin. Elvis pin, what am I talking about? I love Elvis. Thank you, Elvis. There's a great Conan pin available for everyone. Conan chapter. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Slaughter.
Good stuff.
So, and we've got that on the booth for everybody. It's a fantastic book, the pin's delicious, and it's available with every copy you purchase.
Delicious. It's delicious, everyone.
Except for that one guy who doesn't like the Conan film.
I realised that you wouldn't be picking it up.
But if you buy it, you can do whatever you want to the book. It's fine. It's good. Best soundtrack ever, though, right? You gotta admit, the soundtrack is unstoppable.
It's incredible. Soundtrack's incredible. Big John Williams, can't beat him. I think we've got time for one more quick question. You, sir, because your hand was so lightning fast.
Nice shoot.
You guys mentioned the video game. Will there be any tie-ins to the Isle of Septa, the Undying Lands, any of that lore, any of that stuff that you're gonna pull in?
From the video games to the comics, do you mean?
Yeah.
That's actually one of the cool things at our disposal. Because I'm working directly with Heroic Signatures, for example, we have access to the concept artists from the video game. So if we say, hey, we're thinking of going to this region, or we're thinking of doing these kinds of things, it's all holistically kind of being built through. I can't say that the exact things from the video game will always show up to the comics. My first priority is the quality of the narrative and that the comic can exist on its own. But visually, we've got it all at our fingertips, and we're already using some of it. So, yes.
That races us towards the end of this mighty panel. Praise Conan, praise Elvis. I hope you're all going to have a great Sunday at Comic Con.
You're not praise Prom because he doesn't care about you.
Isn't like and Jim will be on the booth 5537 again at the end of row 2300. Don't go to 5500.
Yeah, we're basically heading down there and then starting a signing. So
Right on. Yeah,
with,
we'll go right at 12:30 signing. Absolutely right,
Yeah.
Jim. And before we finish, could I say thank you to absolutely right here. Quiet man with specs and beard at the back of the room is Willow Mullane, our PR and marketing manager. He's bending over now, so there he is. Give him a round of applause. A round of applause for the fantastic Comic Con staff. We love you. Thank you very much. These guys do an amazing job. And give it up to these fantastic creators who've revitalised one of the greatest channels in literary history right here. Thank you. We'll see you at route 5537 on road 2300. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Conan has left the building.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.